Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse and Magic with Ryan Hayashi. Ryan is an awesome magician. I saw him for the very first time when I saw his Penn and Teller Fool Us act. It was funny, it was interesting, it was awesome, and it was a little bit weird, which means that I knew he was my kind of guy. I had to find out how he became who he became, and in this episode, he totally delivered. He gives us behind the scenes on how to succeed on TV, how to succeed in competition acts, and how to succeed in making your script, and why all of those things are so important or have been important to him. This was an awesome episode, a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of lessons for you. I think you're going to love it. I know I did. Here it is, a wonderful time with the one and only Ryan Hayashi. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and we are here with the one and only Ryan Hayashi. Ryan, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Jonah?
I am doing super well, and it is very excited to talk to you, the closest I've ever come to talking to a real-life samurai. And he's a magician, too, so I am very excited. And every single thing that I have seen of yours on the internet has been not only mind-blowing, but also top level in every category, in sleight of hand, in scripting, in performance. It's all been epic. And obviously that's not by accident. So hopefully in this episode, we're going to dive in and figure out a little bit about how that happened and kind of how we might be able to replicate that ourselves. But let's start at the very beginning. How did you get into magic? How did you get started?
I was born and grew up in Dunnville, Ontario, between Niagara Falls and Toronto.
Yes, that is so close.
Yeah, so it's not only great to be on the show and to be talking about magic, my life's passion, but also to be talking to a fellow Canadian. Yeah, I was 8 years old. I'm 46 years old as measured in Earth years. I was born in 1973. It takes decades to grow a personality this big. 1981, I was 8 years old, and my dear Uncle Michael from Toronto gave me a magic set for Christmas. One of those typical 80s ones where all the parts were made of plastic, and I just never stopped playing with it. Whereas at some point, other kids with the same magic set would just, stop playing with it after a couple of years,
fade away.
Exactly, or lose interest or want to be something else. I never lost this fascination with magic. And then I moved on to reading every book I could get my hands on magic from the local library, every bookstore I could find in the malls in Hamilton, visiting bigger libraries in Toronto, of course. And I just progressed from beginners books on magic, because I came from the generation in the 80s, like this is even pre-instructional DVDs from L&L. Like you either got your hands on books or got yourself to a magic store and bought an effect or you had to know somebody. I didn't know anybody. I had no store-bought magic, so all I had was an interest in the art and books. And then I progressed from that to some more advanced books, The Art of Magic by T. Nelson Downs, The Tarbell Course. And over time, I just got better because I never stopped performing magic.
You know what? It's a beautiful origin story that, that beginning part of finding books and kind of that feeling like you're the only person in the world who knows about this thing. Like I definitely know that feeling. And then obviously a little bit later to be opened up to the world of magic. You said you didn't really go to magic shops. When did you realize that there were more magicians out there?
The first time in my life I met somebody else who did magic fluently enough to make it look like they did a magic effect was at Carleton University in Ottawa. I was like probably 20, 21. Everybody knew me as the card trick guy. One other guy showed some sort of a three fly or something with a store-bought coin effect, which I'd never seen before. It was fascinating to look at. And I thought to myself, this will sound arrogant, but it's just a truth bomb. I thought, wow, that would look amazing in the hands of somebody who understands magic. And then I also saw in the pedestrian zone, a gentleman who at the time, like 1992, 93, he was just doing card effects, busking, street performing. His name was Woogie Woogie. And I remember being fascinated with just watching him perform. And of course, he had like, "Hey, folks, check this out. Hey, how you doing, young lady? Go ahead, touch a card, point to one. Yeah, look at it, show to your friends. I'm not your friend. All right." And you had this typical yada yada yada, sort of yappy, dorky. Look at me, I'm a clown. And I remember thinking, dude, man, you invested all those decades into learning the muscle memory to make amazing wonders happen, and you sell it off with about the importance of a fart. Like, what are you doing? Now, those magic friends of mine who really know me better know that when it comes to my selling point as a magician and as a performer, which is my voice, my speaking ability, and my scripting style, in those areas, which are the core of me, my greatest influence was Max Maven. And I remember I was 15 years old, 15 or 16, around 88 or 89. Don Ritter from Three's Company was hosting World's Greatest Magic with Juliana Chen doing card manipulation with a young, we were born the same year, we're friends now, from Germany, Topaz, with his award-winning world champion act from FISM 1984, I think it was. And then Max Maven walked out. I'd never heard of him. And this gentleman, looking like Dracula with too much eyeliner, walked up to the mic and said, "Boo, this is not a Halloween mask. I look like this all the time." And just the shivers that ran up my spine and the goosebumps, the hair standing up on my arm said, damn, Orson Welles, James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, Morgan Freeman, his voice it has that level of power, and he's using it not to make himself into a clown, but to reach into your soul. And it was beautiful. And I decided in that moment at age, it was probably 16, that, hey, I'm going to learn projection and voice. So a lot of that came from Max Maven.
Wow. So, it's interesting how many of us magicians have mentors who've taught us so much, even though we've never met them, or even if we have met them, when they were our mentors, it was because we saw them on TV or on, now on the equivalent on YouTube.
Yeah.
And like you joke in one of your tricks, this is the moment that magic became cool. Everyone can feel the moment that magic became cool for some young 12-year-old or whatever. So talk to me a little bit more about the journey. You were away at university. What were you studying and how were you thinking about magic as a career?
Yeah, well, actually, by the time I was 17 and 18, I wanted to go to a dance academy and study ballet and just be a classically trained ballet dancer for the rest of my life. But my dad, being really Asian and just being older, he just talked me out of that. He said, "No, come on. You get 2 short decades out of that, and what are you going to do? Hope to coach or teach or open a school?" And he just got really Asian and said, "Come on, you're bright enough. Study economics. Study something that'll get you a job." So he just scolded me out of it, and I followed my other area of interest largely based on the fact that I was good at it, my ability to learn languages. So I studied languages and linguistics at Carleton University in Ottawa. But I spent those 5 years just performing a lot of card magic based on basic sleights, but most importantly, developing a personality.
Magicians hear often that like they need a personality or that, they don't have that kind of thing. And you're saying that you went against what might have been the natural tendency that you might have veered towards. So how did you do that? How can one do that?
How did I do it, and how could one do it? A lot of your listeners, I know, are going to want this, and their ears are perking up and they're paying attention now. I was a geeky kid. I made a conscious decision at age 19 to build a personality. And I was still fairly dorky up until age 21, 22. And now, in 2019, I'm just really butch. People say, I'm like the hybrid child of Dwayne Johnson and Elon Musk, with this booming Morgan Freeman voice, and that totally. I'm a walking cloud of testosterone, all of which is true, but it was a conscious decision. I studied voice, body language. I started working out.
Oh, so you just started doing everything that you would have to do to combat those things.
I researched every possible field I could find in terms of self-improvement.
If someone said to you, like, why change the way that you are? Like, why not? Shouldn't people like me the way I am? Shouldn't I be like the way I, like, why am I trying to mess with myself? Shouldn't I find the people that like me for the way that I am? What would you say to those people?
I'd say all the power to you. I'd say if you can learn to love yourself enough and get people to like you just being yourself, that's the better way.
Oh,
That's a better
interesting.
way. I mean, if I can relate to people just by saying, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? Great to meet you. So what are you doing at this event?" "Yeah, I'm Ryan." "No, I'm." Everyone thinks Canadian. "No, I'm." Thinks American. "I'm Canadian actually." And da 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 da. And I don't have to pull out a deck of cards. That's a more human connection than me having to switch into show mode. But having said that, every human can improve their IQ, their speaking abilities, their looks, their body composition. It could be done. And every human also possesses the power to decrease our given gifts. It's very easy to just neglect or even damage or destroy what we've been given mentally, physically, energetically. It's each person's choice.
I love that answer. That's great, and I think it's a good way of thinking. So let's move a little bit forward in time. So you started dedicating some time quite seriously to bettering yourself in every way that you thought would help you out. And then how did that play a role in magic, and how did magic start to play a more serious role in your life?
So magic became more serious, and I had become, I would say, a magically formed adult by the age of 25. I wanted to join the Ottawa Metro Police Force, did the entrance exam, and failed the physical. I was too fat. Out of like 200 applicants, I was second last in the 2 mile run, or a 2.5 kilometer run. I wasn't taller than I am now. I was 5'9", which I still am now. Like, add 50 pounds. The rules were I had to wait a year before being allowed to retake the test. So I thought, what are you going to do with yourself, Ryan? First of all, go jogging, lose some weight, cut back on the carbs, and follow. I had two passions from the age of 12. At age 12, I decided I was more fascinated by the martial arts and magic than anything else in life. And I decided I wanted to devote my life to learning those two crafts, magic and the martial arts. So I said, well, let's your specific karate style, let's just move to Japan and train at the world headquarters school under the top masters. So I did that. And then I taught English to, make a living, pay the rent for my apartment. And pure luck, this is the first time I came into contact with not a magician, but a group of magicians. One of my English students, a Japanese girl, said to me, because every single lesson I was teaching in Japan, I started out with a magic trick. And 20 years ago, their English level was really low. So I had to learn to be visual and rely on just timing and body language and implied effects. And one girl said, "Oh, your magic is good." I said, "Thank you, thank you. Please, you come visit us. We have a magic club." I thought, magic club? Yeah, I've heard about those. Never been to one. Yeah, well, I'll show up. So this was my first contact to like an organized magic club. Downtown Tokyo, Japan. They invite me over. I walk in, and none of them speak English. They're like, hi, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Welcome. Hi, hello, nice to meet you. But sitting in the middle, they're like in a half circle around this one guy who looks about my age. He motions for me to sit across from him at the table, and he says, he gave me this death stare, right? He lasers me in the eyes, and he says, hello, you are a magician. And I thought it was a man, right? Like in Ottawa, Canada, Toronto, Canada, give me 5 minutes, a deck of cards. I was the most amazing thing any Canadian had ever seen up to that point. All my Japanese students freaking out. But now I know it was largely based on presentation and personality. So I said, yeah, I'm the man. I'm Ryan from Canada. Hi, how are you? And so he brings out this brand new deck of cards, puts it in front of me, and says, okay, show me. So I'm doing like my repertoire at the time, thinking I'm the man. He was polite enough not to say anything, but I could actually see disappointment in his eyes. And he said, okay, here, my turn. And then he blew me away. It turns out his name was Shoot Ogawa. That was my first and oldest friend in magic, and my first serious mentor. With a handful of coins and a deck of cards, he was like 100 levels above me technically. And then he asked me, can you help me learn English? I said, why do you want to learn English? He said, I will move to Magic Castle, Los Angeles. Move? No, you mean you want to go perform there? And he said, no, I want to move there, live there. And which he did. He became like a pillar of the Magic Castle in the last 2 decades. He moved there and was just like there every night. he didn't want to perform there. He wanted to move and live there. But in order to do that, part of his plan was he had to get his English up within a year. And then he met me, Ryan, the English teacher from Canada. He said, please, you help me. And I said, hell yeah, please, you help me learn some of that technical magic. And then we had, I would say, the best exchange you could wish for. So he set me on the path of magic on a more advanced technical level.
As far as origin stories go, that's pretty much the one.
Yeah.
You like meet your mentor in a foreign country.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. That's crazy. Okay, so talk to me about the journey. Let's move forward a little bit. I guess you started learning quite a bit more about the sleight of hand and the technical ability. And now let's fast forward a little bit. And you started, I guess, a focus in competition magic.
Yeah.
Was that the next place that you set your sights?
Exactly. I decided in 2001 I just wanted to be a world champion of magic.
Why?
Because I moved in 2000 from Japan to Germany. And I think it was within like half a year, about the same time, Shudogawa moved from Tokyo to Los Angeles to live at the Magic Castle, essentially. And I moved to Germany to just work as an English teacher and have this fascinating hobby of magic. But then I got into, I followed up. I said, hey, if that's what happens to your magic and you have that much fun in a magic club, I'm going to join my local German city's magic club in Mannheim. So I hooked up with these guys, and they weren't Shudogawas, but, sort of a mixed crew. A lot of them older guys that just would sit around drinking beer and tell old stories from the 80s. And yeah, I know you're laughing because that describes pretty much every magic club you're going to walk into. And then I thought, well, yeah, is there anything beyond this? Like, what can I do to challenge myself? And I just started asking questions like, where do you go? Like, if I want to, and I was just showing off my best stuff, and they were like, well, hang on, we're collecting the money to be able to bring in names like Michael Amar or Daryl or Aldo Colombini 3 times a year to show us this stuff we're watching you do every week. Like, what's up, Ryan? What are you doing in their city? Like, what's next? And I said, I don't know. Like, I read on the back of one of the LNL VHS cassette tapes I have of Daryl. He's wearing his medal around his neck with his smile, and it says FISM World Champion. You guys know anything about that? They're like, yeah. And now I know, like, Germany is probably the best organized country in the world if you want to compete. Yeah, we have preliminary eliminations. In those days, it was 4 different cities. They've now narrowed it down to 2. If you rank high enough, a year later, you can enter the German Nationals. And then a year later, you can enter the FISM FISM World Championships. It's a 3-year cycle, and then it starts over again. And since then, at some point around 12 years ago, they added the continental, the North American, South American, European, and Asian, which are held the same year before the World Championships. So it's now a 4-level thing. And actually, if you want to get technical in Germany, no other country on the planet does this. They have a 5-level system. They have the junior coaching program, where they put juniors with serious coaches and like theatrical directors to pimp their acts. They have junior championships for those who actually want to, get their acts evaluated. Then they have the preliminary eliminations in year 1. Then they have the German Nationals and the European Continentals in year 2, and then the World Championships in year 3. So it's all of these events only happen every 3 years. So they told me that, and I said, wow, when's the next this was 2001. When's the next preliminary elimination so I can enter this thing? They're like, sign up now. It's not too late. Like, it's this year, 2001. So I said, sign me up, folks. I didn't even know the rules. From the 8 categories, I signed up for 4 of them. I was in close up because I thought, well, what I'm doing is close up. I can handle not just cards. Oh, card magic. I do a lot of card magic. Comedy, well, I'm funny as hell. And then I picked another one, like mentalism. I said, yeah, what else? I'll sell it as mind reading. And then I show up at the event. I didn't know anybody. And they're friendly enough to like, oh, you are, I got to switch to my Hollywood German. Yes, hello. Oh, where are you from? You are from Canada. I see on the listings, the paper, you are in 4 different categories. Are you sure? You have 4 separate acts? And I asked, well, I don't know. What's an act supposed to look like? And then they knew they were dealing with a newbie. They're like, we have the rules, must be over 5 minutes, under 10 minutes or you're disqualified. And the judges must feel if it's comedy, you are funny. If it's cards, you're using only cards. If it's mental reading, you're a mind reader. Da, da. And I said, oh, well, I guess I better decide what I'm doing for which of the categories. And they gave me this blank stare. They said, you know you are on tomorrow, yes? I said, yeah, I'll figure it out. That was my attitude, right? I'm just going to walk on the floor and just clean up. And luckily, they just calmed me down a bit. They said, no, listen, maybe it's better for you just choose the one. It's the judges that think, what's this guy doing? He's doing bullshit. He doesn't know what's going on. And choose a favorite. Which do you like? I said, card magic. It's okay. Cancel the other three. Do it now. Tell the organizers you are in card magic. And then that was my first competition.
Wow. And how was that competition?
It went well. It was structurally not the strongest act. It was an ambitious card with twists built into it, and I opened with a ghetto blaster with an audio cassette recording of me with blank spaces in the middle arguing with myself. And I told everyone, hey guys, listen, my German sucks. I'm new. I've been here a couple months, but I brought like a translation machine, press play, and then the recording was scripted, of course, and everything I said in English, like, hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Guten Tag alle zusammen. My Name is Ryan. And people were like, what? Hey, what the hell? Yeah, so really happy to be here. And then it would go English, German, until at one point he said something wrong, or I would pause or stutter something, and then he would put me back on script. And then they realized, well, hang on, this is getting like really weird. And then he would switch languages, and then it was a hilarious comedy bit.
Tell me about some of your competition experience.
For the last 19 years, I've been consistently very active in competition. Between 2001 and just last week, literally, I've been competing with various acts. And I've also competed with 4 different acts at the FISM World Championships of Magic and managed to rank first for close-up at the 2017 FISM European Championships of Magic, which makes me the FISM close-up European champion. So that's a lot of experience. And as well, in order to get there, I competed and managed to win first place at the German National Championships of Magic, the French National Championships, Swiss National Championships, Austrian National Championships, Italian National Championships, as well as the 2003 British Macmillan Championships, and both of the major American competitions, the IBM and SAM, in each country's respective language. The entire act from beginning to end, which was a lot of work.
Not only have you competed multiple places, won multiple places, but you've done it in multiple languages too.
Yeah.
All while being your side hustle from being a teacher. It's mind-blowing, man. It's mind-blowing. So since then, you have focused more on competitions, obviously got some wins under your belt. And talk to me about how competitions have been important in your growth and why it's a good thing for a magician to invest their time into.
Yeah, well, that's just my opinion because I've done a lot of them. I do have my own magic academy in my city. I do have a group of students that I'm teaching magic to. It's each of their own free choice, but I tell them, if you want to compete, I'll coach you and I'll try to help you to get your act looking as solid as we can. But invest three years in it. Not under a year, 3 years. It's a 3-year project. It forces you like anything else. If you want to be a fitness model and just look good on photos because of your body composition and your musculature and your six-pack, enter a bodybuilding competition. If your thing is you want to be the most awesome skateboarder, parkour guy, breakdancer, whatnot, enter a competition and see where you rank among others. It just forces you within a given time frame to work on your material. It's as simple as that. I did it once in 2001, enjoyed the process, and said, all right, I made it through the preliminary eliminations. Let's go to the German Nationals. Great. Let's go to the World Championships, see if I can get myself a world champion title.
And at the time, you were teaching English. You would you would teach during
I'm
the
still
day
teaching
and then
English.
at night.
I'm still teaching English.
Oh, right.
I still do magic as a hobby.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you do it better as a hobby than some people do it with their whole entire lives. Tell me a little bit about some advice for somebody who maybe wants you as their coach for a competition act, but doesn't have you. What kind of things could you tell somebody that are big key points or big key sticking points in competition act?
Thankfully now, anybody who is interested in checking out competition or entering one has YouTube. Just enter the letters FISM and check out the Asian, European Continental Championships, the last handful of World Championships. In 2018, the close-up champion, of course, was Eric Chen. In the World Championships before him in 2015, it was Shin Lim. That's the level, But, you can take a look at the second, third, fourth, and fifth place winners, and within a very small margin, they're that good as well. I mean, just mind-blowing stuff. And that's one of the things I love about the art, and it really comes out once you see higher level competition, is that unlike other entertainment fields, we have the least amount of restrictions as to what we produce and how we go about it.
In our competition.
No, in magic in general. What I'm trying to say is, if you're a singer, you're not swinging a tennis racket around. You're not breakdancing necessarily. That's not your selling point. If you're a singer, you have to do the vocals and you're singing into a microphone. If you're a dancer, you have to dance. If you're a comedian, you have to make people laugh. If you're producing a horror movie, you got to produce something scary enough that it gets more than 10% on Rotten Tomatoes and it sells some tickets. You see what I'm saying? And if you're a magician, the parameters are more open for us. We have more artistic freedom than any other artistic field. What we produce, well, is it scary like a horror movie? Could be. Is it all fuzzy, feel good inside like a romantic comedy? Could be. Does it send a message the way I tried to do on my Penn and Teller Fool Us segment about belief in human potential and not giving up, a commentary on today's marshmallow generation? Could be. But how do we go about it? How do you become a top-level singer? How do you become a Whitney Houston, a Mariah Carey, a Celine Dion? There's a specific way to do it. You can't do that by playing tennis for 30 years. Doesn't make you a better singer. How do you become a Tiger Woods, a top tennis player, a top skateboarder, a top swimmer? There's a very narrow road to get there. But how do you put together something like an Eric Chen or a Shin Lim has, that you've got 7 minutes that the world's never seen before and it just blows away America's Got Talent? Well, no rules there. No rules. The camera sees what the camera sees.
I see what you're saying. So it's kind of like there's endless possibilities, right?
Endless possibilities, exactly.
Do you think that's a bug or a feature? Because sometimes there's the whole struggle of choice, right? Where you're kind of
it's a good thing. That is a good thing.
Because each person can express a little bit more about themselves or share the way that they like to perform or they like do what they do.
Yeah.
What would you use to, like, if somebody wants to start thinking about their first competition, they know that they have to set aside longer than they anticipated, maybe 3 years worth of time. What else can they think of? They know that they can go onto Google and find out what the best in the world are doing, kind of get a better feeling for how they rank. What can they do to make sure they're moving themselves in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, first thing, that's only my approach. I would say if you actually want to put an act together, set aside 2 to 3 years, and then decide from the 8 FISM categories which category you want to compete in. There's 5 stage categories. It's comedy, grand illusion, general magic, mental magic, or manipulation. Or do you want to be one of the 3 table or close-up categories, which they call micro magic, which in English just translates to close-up anyway, card magic, or parlor magic. And then you have to figure out not only the effects. What I consider the effects is like taking a hot model and just telling her what shoes to put on. That's just the beginning. Then you have to decide who you are. You have to decide what persona. It could be a fictional figure or it could be you. You want to decide what person your audience takes away, what story, if any, you want to tell with your routine. Because when you look at Eric Chen's ribbon routine, it doesn't tell a story in the conventional sense that Hansel and Gretel went walking through the forest holding hands, but within that small stage frame of objects, it does tell a story. He's got a white string which looks like a shoelace, and anything that crosses that line magically changes to something else. That's the whole storyline. And when he signals with the little white frames that one side is supposed to be red and one's blue, the story is cross that line and it's red or blue. And then one of them's a coin, cross that line, it turns into a coin. One of them's blank, cross that line, it's non-existent. In a magic act, sometimes that's all the story you need.
So focus on who you are and focus on story a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a great approach. And I think, the story part of it, I think both of those are incredible. Obviously, the who you are, I think, is a little bit more challenging to tackle.
That's challenging for a lot of guys to tackle in life, never mind when performing magic or trying to put together a standout act. Another really concrete strategy I could offer your listeners is to try to optimize the balance between the visual and the audio. Now, what I mean by that is what I consider a good act, and Max Maven has this, Sean Farquhar has this. I don't want to sound stuck up, but I consider my Penn and Teller Fool act to have this as well. You could watch the act on mute, and it's visually beautiful enough that you say, wow. And then you can replay it, turn off the screen, and just listen to the audio and still say, wow. That's hard to do. But that's what I try to do. I try to optimize both.
I think that's a really great piece of advice. I think one way to do that, which is obvious, but it's definitely helpful, is to watch yourself back on tape. And you can literally do both of those things. You can mute it and look at yourself. And I do that all the time. And you can do the opposite, which is let it play and turn the brightness off on your screen and watch what happens. And you'll catch all of your poor speaking and ums and ahs and weird things like that. And you'll also notice, you'll look at yourself and be like, why do I look like that? And you're like, oh, the stage looks so empty the way I've done it. All of it becomes obvious when you start filming yourself. And I love that, playing on different levels. You want to fill all of the senses that you hit. You want to do a good job performing and entertaining.
And if it's a musical act, I try to get the music cut, the music edit, like the fades, evening out the levels, cutting out any like unnecessary noise, and as well as sort of the flow from the amount of time of each piece of music. I try to get it like a beautiful enough piece of music that it's just nice to listen to, even if you don't see the act. But if it's a spoken act, I consider that even harder, because I want to be able to listen to the audio of a spoken act and be listening to interesting radio.
I get what you mean. And I really like that example of thinking about it on both levels. A lot of the times you get one or the other. Some of the best sleight of hand magicians I know
Can't talk.
sound so stupid. Yeah. And some of the best entertainers that I know and some of the best talkers have sometimes mitigated the sleight of hand that they have to do and just maybe focused on being funny or something of that nature. So focusing on both for a magic effect, particularly for a competition, I think sounds like a great piece of advice. Let's change gears a little bit and chat about television appearances. I know you've been on TV a lot, and similar to competitions, there's a lot of advice that someone who has been on TV knows for going on TV in the future. So before we talk about advice for what to do once you're on TV, talk to us a little bit about the behind the scenes to how one can get their magic on television.
I do have a fair amount of knowledge and experience in the field of performing magic on TV. In the decade from 2008 to 2018, I performed on 38 primetime national television shows in 12 countries in 6 different languages. The last one being last year's season 5 of Penn and Teller Fool Us 2018, which I'll never forget. The original air date was July 9th. It was a Monday, July 9th, 2018. And I'll never forget it because it was the Monday, which was the first day of the Busan, South Korea 2018 World Championships of Magic. And I couldn't have asked for a better hype, emotional mental boost than everybody running around with their smartphones pointing at me on day one of the convention where I wanted to, prove myself as the man. And I literally just flew back into Germany yesterday from performing on my 4th Got Talent country.
Wow.
So performing magic on television is a different type of magic. You have to know how to play for the camera. You have to have a tight sense of timing. The camera, when you're on television, will smell not only hand shaking, not only stuttering, not only any unsure body language. For some reason, the viewers and the camera can literally smell like wolves the moment you mentally black out for like a second. So you have to completely own yourself, own your act, and own your stage from the moment you walk on. It's a real test of your game, how solid you are.
So if somebody wanted to get on television, get onto one of these programs or just find their way on TV, it's sort of a big goal for many magicians. What kind of things would you advise them to do?
I would say the most obvious and easy route would be to try to enter something like a Got Talent. The same show format is aired in 20 plus countries. At some point, somebody told me they counted. It was 23, 24 countries at one point. America's Got Talent. The entire world watches that. You know, the entire planet is watching Eric Chen and Shin Lim.
And then what kind of advice do you have for somebody once once they've landed their spot on TV? What do you know from doing TV so much that other people don't know that you could save them from a mistake?
First thing you have to know is if you go that route and you get material that lands on television, you have to understand that you are selling your soul. In order to appear on television, you have to sign a waiver which gives up all of your rights to whatever they record in terms of visuals and audio. They're allowed to manipulate what you say. They can manipulate how good you look, how bad you look, give you epic, music that makes you look godlike, or dorky music which automatically makes you look lame. It's just magical how good or how crappy changes in editing and sound can make a performance. And they have that right depending on how many awesome or average or heart-wrenching or crappy acts they want to have that year. The way the show works, and this part I am allowed to say because it's not giving away any trade secrets. They open the doors to whoever wants to show up at one of the open castings. People stream in the tens of thousands in all the major countries every 12 months. Approximately, and I've now done it in 4 different countries. Approximately half of them are singers. 90%. Now that's my guess if you actually talk to the guys who work in the production teams, it might say it's 80% or 85%. It's really high. I would say definitely more than 8 out of 10 you never see on camera, just because they drop the weakest. They may keep the crappiest of the crappy, like turd sandwich best, just for a laugh. But other than that, you have to be able to say your twin brother died last week and you wrote this song together, or your grandma raised you and she just passed away this morning and was waiting for you to do this dance for her. And like, you've got the heart wrenchers, and then you've got the awesome acts. And here's the good news. Up until 3 years ago, worldwide, most of the magic acts on all of the Got Talent shows were average to crappy. And no offense to those performers who were on the show. They weren't as good as what we've seen in the last 3 years on America's Got Talent. We had Will Tsai, and then the following year we had Shin Lim, and then the following year we had Eric Chen. That, for 3 solid years in a row, has set the bar at a new place. That's what the average Joe viewer now believes magic can look like. 5 years ago, that was not the case. 10 years ago, magic was dorky. Now, the average person around the world, you say you're a magician, they're hoping to see that. So, it's raised the level of interest. The number of people interested in learning magic has skyrocketed. Great for guys like me, whose careers are tapering off, but who has the knowledge and skill set. But it raises the competition, man. It raises the amount of work you have to put in to be able to stand out.
So once you're on the show, like if you know you're planning for an act that's going to be on TV,
Yeah.
what kind of things should you plan for or be hyper aware of?
Once you know you've sold your soul.
Yes.
I'll give an example of a magician I know who did sell his soul. I did Britain's Got Talent, was my first Got Talent in 2010. I had just come off of 2 successful years of European television in 3 other countries. And then I didn't have any further calls, but I really loved it, and I had proved consistently in 24 performances in over 2 years, in 3 series, that I had the goods, that I could deliver. Not to brag, but I am bragging, but it's all true. I was the guy cutting my own music, bringing my own props, which they could not find or bring over from Japan on time. I was doing the choreography, the lighting, the camera angles. I was handing the director scripts, which of course in the first encounter was like, would you shut this kid up? Who does he think he is? Until the team who has to put the show together says, boss, you better take a look at this. And then I had a reputation with those production companies by the end of those 2 years. And then I thought, great, what's coming next? No more calls. But I just wanted more. And in 2010, new biggest thing happening on YouTube that was getting views in the millions. There was a singer by the name of Paul Potts on Britain's Got Talent, 2009. And he had a whopping 8 million views. And I thought, damn, 8 million views, which in 2010 was mind-blowing. I thought, I want 8 million views. I want to do that. I'm going to enter Britain's Got Talent. So I took the cucumber sword, ninja sword, samurai cutting act, and I entered. But as part of my research, I watched a lot of the Britain's Got Talent videos from seasons 2008 and 9 on YouTube. And I came across, now this is a decade later, I don't know if it's even still online somewhere. I came across a video, it was called Shitty Magician. And I said, oh, this is a laugh, let's click on Shitty Magician. And it turns out it was Britain's Got Talent a year before I was going to enter in 2009. I said, well, this is relevant, let's see what happened to this guy. Britain's Got Talent, it was British, the judges were British, the performer was also a young, good-looking, really together British guy. And I thought, this does not bode well. What did he do wrong? Because he just had, I could tell from his stage presence, his walk on, this is a working professional. And he had full command of the audience stage. Hello, everyone, my name is da, 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 da. And he did his rendition of the David Copperfield vanishing the duck in the one barrel and the other barrel other side of the stage. Let's look in the other box and ta-da, there's the duck. And then the camera goes back to the first box and shows the duck going wah, wah, walking out around from the back of the box. And then they go to like Simon Cowell or one of the British judges saying, hey, you've got 2 ducks. And then they go to a close-up of the red buzzer on the desk, the hand, so pressing down on it. They show the big red X lighting up. Then they show his back as he's walking off stage. And then I did 2010 Britain's Got Talent. The act looked amazing. It now has 50 million views, the one video. And at a British IBM convention or like a Blackpool, one of the major British magic conventions, I'm just hanging out talking to a Eugene Berger and a Max Maven, and this guy just walks past me, and he looks me in the eye and he says, hey, aren't you that crazy ninja dude? You did the samurai sword thing. I said, yeah. Hang on, aren't you like the duck magician that got screwed? He said, yeah. Jesus Christ, mate. And I said, excuse me, gentlemen, tell me about it. What happened? He said, do you want to hear the truth? I said, yeah, hit me. He was a working professional magician, so this hurt him. He was really not happy about this. I had nothing to lose, you know. I'm an English teacher who just does some weird shit. And he had the solid duck act, and he can't prove it, but he highly suspects, because it never happens unless somebody touches it, that the first box was tampered with. Somebody found the wrong latch or the wrong secret back door, because he himself did not wheel the props on stage. On Got Talent, no performer, they don't care if you're a magician, wheels their own stuff on stage. The stagehands do that, and you first step foot on stage when you're called. He doesn't like people touching his props, especially not the duck act, and they were out of his hands, and by the time he walked on, he cannot physically explain how duck number 1 got out of the thing unless somebody accidentally rubbed up against a latch or found it and just said, oh, what does this do? He thinks something happened. At that moment, there were 2 ducks standing next to him. He says, so, and the duck is now in box 2, and hang on, you've got 2 ducks. And he picked it up and said, and I've cloned the duck. And then he switched into stand-up comedian mode, gets everyone behind him, they're laughing. He gets a standing ovation, and he gets positive comments from all 4 judges. Oh, you're so funny. At first we thought you were a screw-up, and now you've turned it around. Fascinating, great. Oh, lovely. And then he physically turned and walked off the stage. But because he had signed the agreement, they had the right to screw him over and decide, no, he didn't impress anyone. Although it didn't physically happen while he was standing there, at some point, a judge's hand pressed the red button. At some point, the red X lit up. And then after that, at some point, he walked off stage. Ta-da, movie magic. That is heartless and horrible, and every candidate that's what they're setting themselves up for. Potentially, because the production company has the unrefutable, unlimited right to do that to everybody who appears on the show. It's their show. That's the way television works. The next thing I want your guys to know, or your people to know, if they're thinking about that route, also be aware of how television shows are put together. Now, I hope that Fremantle and the Got Talent company doesn't come after me and sue me for libel because, again, none of these are trade secrets. I'm just stating how the process works for everyone who enters the show, including me, several times, including all future contestants, including Shin Lim, including Eric Chen. Those are the rules. When we enter that arena, we have to abide by those rules because those are the rules, okay? So anyone from Fremantle or any Got Talent hears this, I'm playing fair. I'm just saying what the rules are, which are applied to and told to every candidate who's ever entered and who will enter, okay? Just, I'm covering my ass. The other thing to consider is, because my brother also worked as a television producer in Canada, and I'm a little bit familiar with the process now with over a decade of hands-on experience. Doesn't happen by accident, this much television work, and you can't do it that long without learning a few things. Every production company, whether they're producing a Got Talent or a Voice or whatever they're producing, they're suffering in 4 areas. Or they have to work within the confines of a limited budget. Okay, unless you're James Cameron and it's coming out of your own pocket, you just can't magically decide to add money to it. So they have a limited amount of money. They have a limited time frame. There's a certain air date. That's non-negotiable. They have a limited amount of mental capacity, attention, and patience. And the big one where they get killed is this is the most valuable resource, a limited amount of imagination and new stuff. And with over a decade of Got Talent playing around the world, it actually took a little bit longer for Magic to reach the current status it has now. Because the Magic World had to wait for Shin Lim and Eric Chen to become FISM World Champions and have the balls to say, all right, let's turn to the world's viewership and show on a bigger arena beyond, magicians who follow FISM. Let's show the average Joe around the planet who just watches baby and cat videos on YouTube what Magic looks like. And the production company's job is to produce the best looking, most exciting, most interesting product they can. So you have to keep that in mind when you very honestly and analytically take a look at your material. You ask yourself, why would a Will Tsai, Shin Lim, or Eric Chen just be mind-blowing to an average Jane or average Joe sitting at home who's never seen Magic before?
And what's the key for you to answer that question? Like, or do you think that's what people should be asking themselves about their act?
Let's put it this way. Let's look at Cardiographic, the rising card on a sketch pad. This was done by some big, happy to be here. What's up, bros? Ex-NFL football player 5 or 6 years ago. Wasn't the best magician. He didn't even have the best handling of a rising card sketch pad, but whatever. He was an ex-NFL player. That won him points for the first round. People liked him because... yeah, it was an NFL player, and look, wow, a drawing just moved and they tore the paper off. That's friggin' magic, because at that point in time, while for magicians, we're saying that's just so nothing, that's ridiculous. It's different rules in television. The average Joe can't say that's a Martin Lewis cardiographic effect performed in the mid-'80s by David Copperfield, which became a standard in the '90s. They see a guy drawing a picture on a piece of paper and then it changes. And I remember at one point, like 8 or 9 years ago, somebody, who was it? There was a handful of guys who were not the strongest magicians. There was a Smoothini and a Gibrizi and Yo What's Up, I'm a 90s Rapizi, I forget who their names. One guy did nothing but a 2-ball sponge ball transposition from a judge's hand to the other. And that was the most amazing thing they'd seen, which for magicians is like, are you kidding me? But at that point in time that year, that hadn't been milked yet. You see what I mean? Because out of their desperation to find the most awesome and new and incredible visuals they can.
Oh, so you're saying now we have to work harder.
Now you have to work harder. No one will ever get away with a standard Goshman sponge balls transposition again.
Right.
Anywhere on the planet. No one can ever do cardiographic ever again anywhere on the planet.
Right.
It's been done. Nobody can ever even get away with a transposition card to impossible, it's in my mouth with smoke coming out of my mouth anymore. It's been done. They're going to say, what? He's a poor man's Shin Lim. He's a wannabe Shin Lim.
Oh, look at him doing Shin Lim stuff.
Yeah. No one could ever get away with a hyper-visual mechanical matrix Will Tsai anymore, because they can find it like that on the internet and say, well, hang on, that's been done. So that's another factor to think of, something unique that hasn't been seen before, especially if you're trying to think in terms of television.
I love it. I think that's killer advice. And I think putting it in perspective of where we are in time is a really great way to think about it. The last thing that I want to ask you before we start wrapping up is I want to just talk about scripts and scripting. What kind of approaches or advice do you have for somebody who is struggling with it? I mean, a lot of the times people maybe like a piece of magic and they don't really know what to do with it, how to start, what to do. And one of the things I like a lot about your magic is it tastefully touches on the things that you're interested and passionate about, and that you're able to share the who you are as a person through your magic tastefully instead of clunkily. So can you talk a little bit about how one can do that with their scripting?
Definitely, definitely. I have submitted a second follow-up act to the producers of Penn and Teller Fool Us. Season 7 for next year, 2020, has been confirmed. If I should have the good fortune that they bring me back to do another act, it will be a follow-up script in the same vein as the epic monologue I did with The Matrix. Here's a sneak preview for an act that maybe the world will never see. The whole thing's already scripted now. It's ready to go for next year. Can you hear that? Watch these cards and listen carefully, because you can actually hear parents across the planet turning the volume up and telling their children to pay attention, because they can sense intuitively that I am one of the rare voices on television who will inspire their kids to learn to read Shakespeare, strive for a greater command of thought and language, and grow up to become smart, articulate individuals who will contribute to the advancement of human civilization and social harmony for everyone in the world. So yeah, it carries truth bombs. It carries a message. It's thrown in your face in a ballsy way that the average viewer who understands English is like, what? So it's very carefully crafted. Like a lot of thought went into the process of script writing. Here's how I went about it. I've always known the importance of script writing if you're speaking. The Ultimate Matrix, let's use that as my example. I began working on in 2004. I competed with it actually at the World Championships in Stockholm, Sweden, FISM 2006, wearing a muscle shirt because I was working out at the time, and 90s trance music, and no other scripted thing to say other than, hey, everybody, watch me. Look at those 4 coins. Bam. Now they're in this corner. Watch. I'll do it again with one hand. Bam. Look, I'll take hands off the board, but bam, no hands. And nothing but look at me. Bam. Done it. Thank you very much. I walked off, and the feedback I got was, well, that wasn't really an act. But it was killer. I invented moves that no other human had thought of or could physically do at that time. The bar has risen now. But it's just the way I came out and said, hey guys, look at me. And, the whole magic community and the judges, they don't like anyone too alpha unless you're doing Grand Illusion and making an elephant on a motorcycle on a girl in a white dress float. Then you're allowed to sort of puff your chest out and look all matador. But a close-upper? No. Shin Lim first competed with me at the 2012 World Championships, and he didn't win anything either because the judges said, well, that's not close-up. He wasn't talking. It was a musical act. You know what I mean? He was ahead of his time. He had the most awesome act already in 2012 the magic world had ever seen, and the judges didn't know what they were looking at. So, okay. And so back to the need for script. And then I ranked 8th. So I had the bragging rights. Yeah, FISM World Championships, top 10 performer closer, whatever. I wanted to be world champion. I wasn't happy. And then I just kept working on the act for another decade. So between 2004 and 2016, the act was 12 years old. My hands kept getting better year by year, and I got to the point where I could lay a towel on a car, kneel on a fuzzy rug, and just my angles were so clean you would swear people could always almost sit or stand around me in a semicircle, and I was still getting it that on. And then I asked my brother in 2016, because I decided 2015 was the World Championships where Shin Lim won. And then that same following year, he was on Penn and Teller Fool Us, and I saw his dream act, smoke coming out of his mouth. And it pissed me off because I'd spent the last 2 decades saying, just wait. I'm going to be the first Asian to hit the mainstream North American television. Once they see magic combined with Asian precision, oh, who's this guy? Shin Lim? Damn this dude. And I was pissed off because I loved his act. It made me angry that I respected and enjoyed his act so much. And I said, it's been done. And he's 20 years younger than me. Like, I'm 46 and he's 27. Turns out he met me in 2009 at an American IBM because his mom brought him. I talked to his mom, and I was the imported star lecturer from Europe, and he was a shy 16-year-old kid working on, cardistry, who was afraid to say hi to me. How's that for, somebody putting in the work and then biting you in the butt? So I see Shin Lim and I said, you know what? Come on, Ryan. This has been your lifelong dream since the age of 8, and you made a conscious promise to yourself, a decision to just make this happen at age 12. Let's do this. 2016. Re-enter the next cycle. So preliminaries 2016, German and European Championships 2017, and then Busan, South Korea 2018. Come on. We got to rank in the top 3. So then I asked my brother, end of 2015, after working in television and after having taught courses in screenplay writing at the University of Toronto, I said, teach me how to write a script that moves people. And my brother, he's this genius guy. He said, okay, what's the story? And I said, that 4-coin thing I do? And he knows the act. He said, yeah. He said, I want to enter it, but there's a new trend in magic that like just 15 years ago, you could just string together effects for no reason. And if it was visually pretty enough, you'd get points. Now it has to look like a complete unified storytelling thing. Teach me. And I'm going to change the wording because this is how it rings in my head. But he taught me, he said, there's 4 elements. If you can get all 4 out of 4, you've got a killer story. You've got Titanic, you've got E.T., you've got the emotions. Rule number 1 out of 4, 3 acts, a beginning, a middle, and an end. You don't have that. You walk out, you're a little bit, yay, everybody look at me, I'm the Asian alpha. You show off what you can do with your hands and you walk off having showed off. Nobody cares about you. So the beginning tells people what's coming, or at least gives them a feeling of what's to come. The middle, something happens. And the ending, if it's a good ending, people clap and cheer and say, wow, that was a great story before you fade to black and the credits roll. You see what I'm saying? Just by the last action they see or the last words spoken, they understand that this emotional ride has now come to an end. That's rule number 1, the 3 acts, beginning, middle, and end. Rule number 2, he said, the protagonist of your story needs to want something. He wants to achieve something, wants to be something, have something, do something, and he has to get over barriers in order to make that happen. So E.T. wanted to go home, had no radio, couldn't call home. Indiana Jones wants the golden statue, but there's poisonous darts flying at him. Titanic. Leonardo DiCaprio wants the rich, redhead, snobby girl from a family with money, and he's a second-class citizen. She won't talk to him. How do they make it happen? Okay? So overcoming hindrances to win the prize. Rule number 3 of 4, he said, change of heart. He said, if you can have a change of worldview or change of heart in the protagonist, they're going to care more about the protagonist. So at the beginning of E.T.'s afraid of humans because he doesn't know if we're hostile, right? By the end, they become his friends, the kids, and they help him to go home. Snobby Rose from Titanic wouldn't talk to Leonardo DiCaprio at the start of the movie. By the end, she's fighting to keep him alive, floating on this piece of wood in ice water. And then rule number 4, he said, this is the big one, Ryan. If you can tell a deeper, more meaningful statement of humanity, something with meaning that has people thinking at the end of the story, then you've got them. So you play Harry Potter for some 6-year-old kid and say, ask them what's the story? They'll say Harry went to Hogwarts, learned magic. Really? Not really. It's 8 movies about him battling Voldemort and his horde of pure blood Death Eaters who don't want a mixing of bloodlines and cultures. That's a different story. You ask the 6-year-old what happened in E.T. Yeah, E.T. was floating around on his bicycle. No, it's not. It's xenophobia. It's a fear of being in another planet's culture. If the adult can have something more to think about, something more meaningful, then you've got it. So then I took a few months. It was about half a year, and then I called my brother back and I said, here's the storyline. I want to be able to take a lot of the existing matrix, the ultimate matrix, and I want to tell a story with it. How's this? I'll go with a true story. Here's a guy in his 40s. He's quit competition magic because I quit one cycle. That's when Shin Lim won, right? I quit 3 years. And he's gone on and he's opened a karate dojo, a studio. And there's a kid in the studio who says, Master Hayashi? Yes, Johnny. In YouTube, I see this thing, the magic thing you do with the 4 coins. I'd really like to learn that. Can you teach it to me? No, Johnny, I don't do that anymore. Why not? I quit playing with that years ago when I walked away from magic, and I haven't touched it since. I probably couldn't even do it. Oh, that's too bad. And then he walks out, and the second act is all musical because I'm looking at this imaginary kid who's not there. You can hear his voice. Walking out an imaginary door, you hear the door shut. Then I'm alone. I move some magazines on my desk because I'm in my dojo office, and I find this little box with dust on it. I wipe the dust off the top. I'm wondering what's inside. I open it up. There's 4 cards and 4 coins. I lay them out in front of me in a square. And in the original script, I thought, let's throw in arthritis. I have problems even opening my hand straight. My hand's trembling. But then I realized, hang on, some of the judges are, older, spaced out guys who were awesome in the 70s. You don't want your hand crooked or shaking. You're going to lose a lot of points. So instead, I act like I haven't touched them in years. I'm alone. And for the last time in my life, I play with the Matrix, and the first few phases don't even work. Not really, but when I'm not looking, they do move, and I'm surprised by the transposition. And I'm like, what? And as I continue, I get back into the magic so that by the last phase, wow, I make the magic happen, and I'm back to my old glory again. And then I just say with my eyes, okay, but that's it. That's it. I put them back in the box. I just nod to myself, and then people walk back into the dojo. Hi, how was your weekend? Johnny? Yes, master. Why do you want to learn magic? When I watch it, I feel like everything is possible, and I want to make the magic happen. Okay, Johnny, let's make it happen. And I pull this coin out of the air, which I'm down on one knee, which symbolically means I'm pulling it from behind his ear. He's like, what? Wow! Does that mean you're going to teach me magic? Yes, Johnny, I'll teach you, but you're going to have to train a lot. Yeah, I will. I promise I will. I know you will, Johnny. I know you will. And he's not there, but I pantomime patting him on the head. I turn him away from me and motion him to the others. Now, get back on the floor. Get back to training. And I just watch him walk away from me, one nod, and then I walk off stage. And everyone's in tears from Disney. And my brother said, being the genius he is, he said, you got your script. You got your script. It's about how we have to accept who we are or reinvent who we are as we get older. It's about passing on our knowledge and experience to the next generation. It's about the value of what we've learned only exists when we put it into younger hands. The magic's no longer yours. It's Johnny's. But Ryan, when you do the handover, put those cards and coins back in the little box, get on one knee, and symbolically have that handover. And that won the European Championships. And then I got the call from the producers of Penn and Teller Fool Us, and they said, yeah, we'd like that Matrix you do. And I was all excited. I was like, damn, I just won the European FISM Championships. Listen, look at this link. And they said, no, we don't want that link. We want it to look like this. And they sent an iPhone 4 recording from 2012. Looked like it was shot through a T-shirt of me in a sweatshirt just hanging out at a table with some buddy saying, hey, look at this. Oh, you like that? Look at this. Like nothing. And I said, seriously, you want that? And they said, yeah. You're not dressing up like Mr. Miyagi. You're not this mystical karate sensei samurai figure. No music. We want you in Western clothing. We want you a relatable, fun, regular guy, just like in that 2012 video. And I said, all right, sign me up. Because it's Penn and Teller. There's no way in hell I was going to say no to this. Like, this was dream come true for me. I'd just watched the last 4 seasons. I'd watched Shin Lim with 2 acts. And I said, sign me up. You want that? You got it. And then I wrote the existing script. And when I walked into rehearsal and they said, all right, so this is Michael Close and I'm, Johnny Thompson. Why don't you show us the act? Well, not a lot we can fix there. Muscle memory. All right, let's bring in the producers. Okay, Ryan, camera's running. Just do it like you want to do it on the show. And I did it like it's scripted, like exactly like you see it on the Penn and Teller Fool Us. And then one of the 2 executive producers just said, okay, and walked out of the room. And I thought, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't think he's impressed. And the other one just was standing there with his hand over his face. And I thought he was going to nod his head and say, what kind of shit is this? And he brought his hand down and there were tears coming down his face. literal tears coming out of his eyes. And I thought, oh no, this is going to be really bad. And he said, that is the funniest effing shit I've seen in a long time. That's what we want on the show. And I was like, is that okay? I was like, going to ask you gentlemen if I'm even allowed to use some of those jokes. There's always an Asian and ticked in this. So, no, that's what we want, man. Hilarious. Who's your writer? Funny. And then when it came time to get on, they just said, do it just like we saw in rehearsal. So it was just a matter of making an artistic decision. I want to script it so it's an over-the-top epic monologue. But at the same time, it does hint at the Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid story was gone, but I wanted the words to mean something. I wanted it to speak to a generation that largely was growing up without mentor figures, growing up without like competent dad figures in the media landscape. And I wanted to, in that moment, for them to be their dad and to inspire them to believe in themselves. So that's why I wrote the script.
It's amazing that you thought that deeply about it, and thank you for sharing sort of the behind the scenes of how it came to be the way that it is. And, it sort of pulls a lot of what we were talking about together about, working hard at it, but then you had an opportunity for TV and you said, okay, if I'm going to do it the other way, I'll do it the other way. And you were able to, in some ways, channel a lot of the intentionality or maybe authenticity of the new script that you were working on, but doing it the way that you had to do it for TV. And it turned out a beautiful product. Like you were, I guess, surprised when the producers responded in that way, but definitely the world has fallen in love with it as well. So thank you for that. And thank you for being so honest about how the behind the scenes came to be, of how that came to fruition. As we are nearing the end of the episode, we've got a bunch of wrap-up questions.
Yep, hit me.
So the first one is, in order to keep this podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that must be on the show. So what magician must we have on the show, and who would be great?
I would recommend Eric Chen.
Oh, great.
Because he's a really friendly guy. He's really down to earth, and he's just a guy who will say, I hope that people like it. I put a lot of work into it, and I just hope it looks a little different than a straight Leonard Green snap deal. And like, of course, it looks like you're otherworldly. He's just a really nice guy, and I'm sure I know that the story he has to tell. I would love to hear it, so that's why I think the viewers would love to hear it.
The next question in our wrap-up questions is about modern magic. So what is something in the current world of magic, 2019 or 2020, that you like, and something about the current world of magic that you don't like?
I generally, I'll respectfully say good work, keep at it. This was good, I like that. But I generally don't like, because I get a lot of submissions from people around the world saying, hey, what do you think of this? Look at this. Can you give me some feedback? The moment I get videos of just a set of hands doing a sleight with minimal talking or non-scripted talking or nonsensical talking, or worse, no talking, I'm like, dude, work on the other 98%. You sent me there's not enough there for me to talk about.
Right.
Like, that's a color change.
That's not an act. How's this movie, and sending you a script.
Yeah, exactly. That's a move. That's not even a full-fledged routine. And even then, there's a lot of work to turn a routine into an act. There's some other stuff you need to focus on before you just send me a video of two hands doing 5 different passes and asking me if you flashed. I mean, that's of course you have to go through those stages, but there's some other work involved.
Totally.
Yeah, but for some reason, the younger generation seems to think that's magic. The ability to do a color change or a couple of passes
is the eye candy part of it.
The eye candy part of it, yeah. But it's happened more times than I can count. Then I encounter these guys live somewhere in some city, somewhere in the world, and I say, wow, look, you see those 5 guys over there? They look fun. Come over, show them something. And they don't have the ability to say, hi, guys, look at this. I'm doing magic. Then they just fall apart. That's like the litmus test for me.
And what's something about modern magic that you do really like?
The creativity. The more recent acts, beyond the obvious Will Tsai Shin Lim and Eric Chen that I've already cited, what I saw in 2018 at the Worlds was just... I was giggling like a little monkey, man. just at getting my ass completely decimated by acts that were, you know, one Korean by the name of KD or KV or something. Never heard of him. Coming out of this Korean machine of guys who do nothing but train, turns on a lamp and plays with shadows and pulling objects out of the shadows, like in older acts from 15 years ago, pulling, you know, objects out of screens, like materializing shadows, having the shadows move objects, having objects cast no shadow, cast the wrong shadow, cast a moving shadow, turn into a shadow. It just, man, like it gave me a nosebleed. It was insane.
Well, it's good to
Yeah.
know. It's good to know that at the competition level, things are still continuing to blow minds, and that the bar continues to be risen.
And not only the creativity, but the density of effects.
Right,
If you look,
magic per minute or
the
whatever.
magic frequency per minute was just bam, 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 bam. Whereas if you look at any act that's 20 years old or older, it's like, okay. That was good for the time, man. It's like
Totally.
Beatles, you know, girls throwing their panties at the Beatles because they're hot. They're the hottest boy band they've ever seen. Well, okay.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a while. Um, I love that. And actually, I've been really enticed by a lot of what you said about how, you know, the exposure to art has changed, like what is good, and especially the lens that you gave for America's Got Talent was super interesting. In this conversation, we've been talking for over an hour now. People listen to this podcast doing lots of different stuff on their way to work, walking their dog, washing dishes, whatever. What is, do you think, the take home point, the most important thing that if somebody takes from this episode, we should consider it a win?
Decide for yourself what you want your magic to be. You know, is it a couple of card tricks that, you know, work and fool most people that you can show your buddies, you know, that have fun at parties? Well, that's fine, man. Nobody's saying every human on the planet has to be a supermodel or a super athlete or a super magician. But if you make the conscious decision to try to have an act or a show that looks professional, if you want to open your own theater show and sell tickets, if you want to get on television, if you want to hone your act and try to win prizes at the international level in competition, well, then you have to pay attention to staging, theatrics, the entire overall presentation. You have to think like the director of a Blue Man Group, Phantom of the
Right,
Opera, you know,
right.
Tarzan.
Listen, outrageous results require outrageous training, and I think this was a great advice and background info and exactly what that would mean and what that would take, whether that means trying to perform on TV, trying to succeed in competitions, or just trying to learn how to script your act in a way that is valuable. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. Before we get to the very, very, very end, Ryan, where can people find you on the World Wide Web, and where can they find some of your magic and material?
Yes. I do actually still lecture. I was more active internationally with lectures 15 years ago, around 2004, 5, 6.
When Shin Lim saw you.
Yeah, exactly, man. Wow. Easy to find. I'm ryanhayashi.com. Or
Very
my
easy.
YouTube channel is Ryan Hayashi. I'm on Instagram as Ryan Hayashi. I'm on Facebook, both as a human person and my public page as Ryan Hayashi. So I'm everywhere as Ryan Hayashi. I still do lecture, but instead of just teaching card and coin tricks like everybody else does, I focus on presentation and script writing, as I've talked about here.
Well, amazing, amazing. And I'll just tell everyone that, you know, like you just said, Ryan's incredibly active on the social medias and YouTube, and he's got great stuff posting Magic Castle things as well as his own show, and he's up on Instagram and he's everywhere. So definitely, if you like his magic, he does a great job on social media, and I recommend following him there and learning a little bit more about the behind the scenes. And with that, we come to the end. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. This was an absolute pleasure, and it was really awesome to learn some behind the scenes of how you do what you do.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
This was lovely, and of course, a big thank you to everybody at home who joined us, listened, learned a little bit. Thank you all so much, and we will see you all next Thursday. Peace. Well, there you go. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It was so much fun and a lot of great wisdom from Ryan. As usual, if you learned something, if something felt particularly important or interesting to you, please help me spread the word, tell a friend, and let more people learn the lessons of today's master magicians. Thank you, as always, for being here. Please spread the word, tell a friend, yell at your front door. I don't care how you do it, but I'll see you next Thursday.